Okay, hey y'all. So I am making this video because I wanted to give y'all an update on just like where I'm at in my spiritual journey. I'm pretty much just giving y'all an update on where God has me in this current season of my life. And y'all, it has been such a roller coaster. Oh my goodness, but I know that my story and my journey is going to be able to help a lot of you. I know that a lot of stuff that I'm going to say in this video is probably going to be extremely triggering. Also, some people are going to think I've lost my entire mind. Some people are going to be like, praise God, Jesus gotta. Some people are going to be like, huh? Like, you know, there's going to be just a whole mix of reactions to this video and just like a whole bunch of reactions to me and the change that I'm going through. But at the end of the day, y'all know that I am a God girl. And so everything that I do, everything that I say, everything that I want to make, create, everything that I want to stand for in my life is literally for God. So I'm really nervous also just to make this video because I feel like it's not easy to just put yourself on blast at the same time that like you're encouraging people, because half of this is going to be like me telling y'all where I messed up along the way of my journey and also how God brought me back. But it's like, you know, you kind of have to expose yourself to also your testimony is literally exposing yourself. But the great thing about God is that all of the old things don't matter anymore once we come back. And I just praise the Lord. Side note that I have been fighting spiritual warfare just to get to this point. I kid you not, last night I tried to film a video of like my entire testimony, and when I tell you, I literally fought for my life. And it's crazy because I finally got to the end. Like I finally recorded. It took me hours. Like, and half the time, like I literally had to pause just to fight the devil. And then I literally would come back and then I'd get up and then I'd fight the devil again. And then I'd come back. And then, so long story short, I feel like I've just overcomplicated it. And so I'm just gonna do my thing here. But yeah, I've just fought a lot of spiritual warfare to get to this point, child. So I know this is going to free people. I know this is going to help people just make sense of a lot of things. So let's just get into it. I'm low-key already hot, so this is going to be interesting, but let's start with this. Praise the Lord, because I feel like I was pulled into so much deception over the past couple years, and that's a lot of what I want to address and attack in this video. The times have become extremely deceptive. Like, oh my God, I could cry. Like and I'm very emotional, so don't, please just ignore me. But like I could cry at how deceptive the times have come, because I'm just like, ugh. Like it's insane how just the devil plays off of our ignorance, how when we don't have a solid foundation, that any little thought that comes into our head can literally plant roots and grow into a big tree of just lies. I have learned so much, so I just thank God that he pulled me out of this right in time, because a lot of y'all know, if you follow my stories, you know, but like I quit my job for the second time with no backup a few weeks ago, like early in January, on God told me to quit my job. And it's crazy because in the time after, the weeks after me quitting my job, when I tell you God has been dealing with me, like not even in a bad way, but just like the amount of revelation, the amount of just like insight, the amount of clarity that I have received since then. It's like how our obedience like creates, how do I say it? It's like, I feel like when we're obedient to what God tells us to do, he always confirms it somehow. And I feel like for me, it was me quitting my job, and then the amount of just freedom and increase that he's given me mentally, emotionally, physically, like has been everything. Like my peace, I'm getting my mind back. Like I didn't know why he wanted me to quit my job. Obviously it's to get into my purpose, but like Okay, I'm getting ahead of myself because I get excited. Okay, so I'm gonna tell y'all how this started, because first, let me tell y'all about my upbringing. So I grew up Ethiopian Orthodox. I grew up in the Ethiopian Orthodox Church. This is the Ethiopian Orthodox cross. I grew up in the Ethiopian Orthodox Church. And when I grew up in the church, like, y'all know me, and like for anybody that really knows me, you know, like, I just love God. Like, I've always loved God. I will never not love God. Like, I feel like I was born into the earth with a deep, like, love, desire, yearning for God. It's like I always knew him. And so from a little girl, like, I just remember just loving God. My mom, I remember when at a certain point in time, like, my parents didn't go to church anymore, and I was a teenager, and like I would wake my mom up, and I'd be like, come on, like, let's go. Like, because I was like, we gotta go to church. Like, it's crazy because I feel like I just always wanted to know God. I always wanted to seek God. Like, I just had a very deep, deep, deep love for God in my heart ever since I was little. And like, my mom even has a little story, which I can't remember it in exact accuracy, but I remember it was when I was little in Ethiopia. I was little in Ethiopia when they took me to the church. And in the Ethiopian church, it's like a custom for you to kind of just get down on your knees and like kind of bow down out of just like reverence for God. And when I was 1, they said that like when we walked into the church, like I immediately just got down into like worship pretty much, which is so wild because I'm 1. But it's like, I feel like I just have always had this deep love for God. I grew up in the church, in the Ethiopian church that I grew up in. I always felt very disconnected from it, because a lot of so let me slow down. In Sunday school, because before I used to go to Sunday school, and in the Sunday school, it was always very interesting. And like, this whole phase of my life is something that God brought me to after the fact. Like, I'm in this season of my life, like, really heavily reflecting on my upbringing in the church, because I didn't really think about it for real before. I just knew that like it wasn't my like, what is the saying? It wasn't like my slice of cake. It wasn't my slice of pie, whatever. It didn't float my boat. And what's crazy is that, so like in Sunday school, we'd go to like Sunday class, and it was kind of disorganized, at least when I was a kid. So sometimes we would go and then there would be Sunday school, sometimes there wouldn't be Sunday school. It just kind of felt like I was going to church just to kind of hang out with my friends, pretty much. Like, I didn't really feel like I came interested to know about God, but for real, I feel like it was just a hangout for me and my friends. Like, you know, even when we did focus on like studying and like curriculum, I don't recall really ever learning like deeply about who Jesus was and like what he did for us, and like the ins and outs of salvation, the ins and outs of like how he frees us from sin, and like what sin is, period. Like, you get what I'm saying? I never really, it didn't click for me. And a lot of what we learned was more like church doctrine. So like pillars of the church, like the different like doctrine, you know. And like as a kid, me learning doctrine, you know, it kind of is boring. To be quite honest. Like, I'm a kid, like I need to be hearing like engaging stories about Jesus to make him like, you know, like make it pop out. But I feel like we were being quizzed on like doctrine and stuff like that, and so it kind of just put like a distaste in my mouth just from a young age for that part. And like, I remember there was one part, or one memory in particular, where I remember asking my Sunday school teacher, because in the Ethiopian church, it's only really men that do like and please forgive me if I'm wrong, because I'm at some point going to post this on YouTube, so please don't cut me up in the comments. But like, the people that actually, like the deacons in the church and the people who actually do like the processional type things in the church were all men. Women in the church were, they would sing, and then they would play the instrument, the drum, the kaburo. And then they'd also be working like in the kitchen, helping with like preparing food, bread, things of that nature, right? But I remember being a kid, and like I one time asked my Sunday school teacher, and it's because at my little age, and it's like, it's crazy because fast forward, it's what I want to do now. It's kind of what I naturally just do now anyway. Like I didn't say like, oh, I'm gonna teach about God, like, but my life, and because it's just how I live my life, it just happened. And like, praise God, because I wouldn't want to do anything else but talk about God. Okay, like I could cry at how happy it makes me to be to just be. Yeah, so I'm not even gonna get into that. Jesus, why am I crying? I told y'all I was emotional. Okay, I really love God. Okay, whew. I need a second. Lord, I'm better. But yeah, so fast forward, anyway, backwards, backtracking. I remember being a little girl, and I remember having like this, because it is basically what I do now. I remember having just this want, and like this kind of like desire to do what they did in the church, like how the men would speak to the church, and how they would like teach people about God, and like they held those roles like that were what I felt like I wanted to do. Like, you get what I'm saying? Not that any role is more important than any other, because that's not what I'm saying, but it's like when it came to that, it felt, for me, it felt like that was what I felt like I wanted to do, and that's the best way for me to give to make an impact, right? And I remember I just asked my Sunday school teacher one day, and mind you, I forgot about this until God brought it back to my memory after. But I asked my Sunday school teacher, and I was like, why is it that it's only men, or like women can't speak in the church? Because women never really had the opportunity to speak in the church. I don't remember hearing not one woman ever have a microphone in the church unless they were singing. I asked him, and he was like, I don't remember the exact answer, but I know that it was either that he told me because it's the 12 disciples that were all men in the Bible, or because something about it was only men. I'm pretty sure that was it. Like, that the 12 disciples were all men, and because they were the ones that were like given, I guess, the permission to spread the gospel, that like that's how it reflects there. And I just remember hearing that, and it's crazy because I really feel like in that split second that he gave me that answer, it really just like it broke almost like my faith in a way. Like, it was kind of just like, dang, like, why would God not, but like, why would he not? And mind you, I'm little, so it's like, I'm like, dang, like, God wouldn't want me to speak in the church? Like, that's, dang, like, it hurt my feelings. You get what I'm saying? So why am I so emotional? Y'all are really like, y'all just gonna have to get these tears, okay? Yeah, so I just remember that breaking my heart at a really young age, and I feel like I just suppressed that pain because I kind of forgot about it until God brought me back in this present like moment, like in this season. So that's more of like my church upbringing. And so once I got out of Sunday school, I grew up a little bit more, and that's when like I could drive. And so when I would try to wake my mom up for church, and like she was either tired, or like she was pretty much just tired. I don't feel like my mom just didn't want to go to church, but she would be so tired, and I'd be like, all right, like, if you don't want to go, like, I'm gonna go. So I'd take the keys, and then I'd go to church, right? And this is when I'm a teenager, is when I'm going into like the big people church. Like, I'm out of Sunday school, and now I'm in the big leagues. Like, I'm there. And I just remember going, and for those that aren't familiar with the Ethiopian church, it's very much rooted in like it has very heavy traditional culture aspects to it. And the majority of what happens in the Ethiopian church is, or like what's spoken in the Ethiopian church, is in a language called Ge'ez. And there are Amharic parts of it. Amharic, I understand. Amharic is like more of the predominant language in Ethiopia. So I understand, I can speak Amharic, but Ge'ez, I don't know not one word. Till this day, I do not know not one word of Ge'ez. And it's not, I feel like even my parents, I remember asking my mom, and she was like, I mean, we know it because like we learned it as kids and we grew up, but like I don't even feel like my parents even really like knew the language, you get what I'm saying? But because you learned it, you're conditioned, and like you've learned it growing up, you kind of just know it. But because we didn't, like, we grew up in America, I know English, you get what I'm saying? So I don't understand. And it would have been helpful if we had learned Ge'ez side by side, like in Sunday school as a kid, so that when we grew up, we'd be able to understand more of what's going on. But we didn't learn Ge'ez. And there were screens in the church too, like big screens that would translate, but it's like, that didn't do it for me. You get what I'm saying? Like, everything made me feel so disconnected. And I remember this one time I went, and like, I would always go with this hopeful expectation. Like, I'd be like, I know I'm not gonna understand majority of what's coming out of these people's mouths. Like, and mind you, the church is like the service is it's long. It's like 4 or 5 hours. You know what I mean? So I wouldn't go the whole time. I'd go for maybe like 2-3 hours. But I would go and I would sit and I would like follow along. So I'd monkey see, monkey do. I'd watch and I'd be like, okay, this is when I bow. This is when I do that. Like, but I didn't understand what I was doing. I didn't really understand why. I just wanted to learn. So I remember going with so much hopeful expectation that like I would hear God. Like, I was like, something that this man is gonna say, something that they're gonna do, or like something that the story that he tells from the Bible, something that he does. Like, I just always went with this hopeful expectation that I would hear God. And unfortunately, I wouldn't. Like, I couldn't understand. I didn't get it. Even when they told the stories, like, it didn't make sense to me. Like, it's like nothing made sense. And so, and that's not their fault, but like, it didn't make sense to me. So, and I came from a completely different time from most of the generation of this church. Like, most of the people that go to the church brought this faith and this practice with them from Ethiopia to the States. But me being somebody that grew up in America and grew up with mostly American culture, it's like, we're in two completely different worlds here. So from the jump, even though I had this great, like, strong desire to know God and to like really like get into it, it's almost like I couldn't, because I didn't really have the guidance, the stewardship, like I didn't have a proper support system to really help me understand who God is, like what Jesus did, like what he came and taught, like the ins and outs of the Bible, and like why it's important. Like, I didn't get that as a kid. Even if the church tried their best to convey that, it wasn't received. Like, the message wasn't received. And personally, I feel like it's not just the fact that like we deliver a message. It's like, it has to be delivered in a way that most people, if not all people on different levels and in different ages and from different places, are able to really receive the message. Because what good is putting out a message if people can't receive it, you know? And like, yes, part of that is on our part of being open to receive, but the other half of it is on the person delivering the message and making sure that like they are delivering it in a way that is going to be easily palatable for the person receiving it, you know? So I digress, but that's just my thoughts. So basically, like, at some point I stopped going to church because I went to college. And once I went to college, you know, college is college, so we ain't go to church then. But no, I remember my girl, I ain't gonna say your name, but I remember we used to try to church hop in the area because we still wanted to, like, you know, find somewhere where we could find like a church home. But not even like a church home, but like, you know, somewhere where we could go while being at school. And I remember it didn't do it for us. Like, it was just weird. Like, the churches were just, not that any church, I don't want to talk bad on no church, but it's like, it didn't work for us. Okay, it worked for the people that it was supposed to serve. Okay, but for us, it didn't work for me. It didn't work for us. Actually, I do recall trying a couple different churches with a couple different people. Like, we tried, and now mind you, this is when I start getting introduced into like more of like the Western world church. So like now I'm in college and like I'm with my American friends, like not even if you're American, but like, we grew up American. So we're not going to the Ethiopian church, so we're going to the churches where they're more Western. It's like everybody's speaking English, and now it's like I'm getting introduced slightly into a different type of like church. You know what I mean? Like, I'm like, okay, this is different. Like, oh, like you sing in English, like, you get what I'm saying? Like, so it's a complete, like, I went through like a mini culture shock. None of them really worked for me. Even me and my friend, like, there were some times where we had some tumultuous times in college. Okay, so we needed to go to church, and I remember we would go to a specific church, and like that moment, there was a moment in time where like I really needed God to come through for me. And it was during that moment when we had went to church, and it was a American, I'm not even going to say an American church because it's not an American church, but it's like it's a non-denominational church. That is the correct way. A non-denominational church. It's not American church. It's just different denominations of Christianity. So yes, thank you, Lord, because I'm not trying to be on here being ignorant, okay? Because a little part of me is just like, I'm still trying to piece together the different parts of my history, and like I'm still really new to understanding a lot of the Western world's version of Christianity. So you guys are gonna have to forgive me for any ignorance in this video, like, please. And gently and softly just correct me in the comments or DM me, like, I'm open to learning. I'm not being mean, or I'm not dumb. I just really am ignorant. I remember we had went to the church, and that was the first moment where I was like, what this pastor is saying is actually relevant to me, right? So I was like, wow, like, okay, like, yes, that helped. But then it's like, right when that started happening, the pandemic hit. Now, y'all, this is where the story gets crazy. This is where deception really kicked in for me. One, I was a graduating senior in college during the pandemic. So in March 2020 is when the pandemic hit. Y'all, I'm not even gonna get into the depths of the type of depression that I went through during that time. But that was the first time in my life that I realized what depression was. Okay, and even then I didn't realize that I was depressed until maybe like a year or two later, when I really started to understand mental health, and like I really started to be like, okay, like this is a pattern, like, okay, like this is chronic, like, okay, like this thing won't leave me alone. Like, then I started to be like, oh my God, am I depressed? No. And so like it was a whole thing, right? During that time, like, I was a graduating senior, and like, mind you, I literally, the light at the end of the tunnel, it was right there. Like, I'm right about to graduate, like I'm right there. And when I tell you that thing it was like the light at the end of the tunnel, I see it, I'm right there, I'm almost about to step in it, and then right before I got there, it was like it's like a candle, and then it was like, whew, and then it's like the light was just gone out of nowhere, and then you don't expect to just not graduate. Like, you get what I'm saying? You wouldn't even prepare your mind for the possibility of something like that happening. And so that rocked me. Oh my God, it rocked me, because I just wouldn't have any sense of control, any sense of reality of like what could be possible and what could not be real or possible. Like, it shattered my like my belief system in a sense. Like, it just shattered real from fake. It shattered like it just, everything felt like an illusion at that point, because it's like, even these things that we're working towards, that we've put in years, blood, sweat, tears for, could literally just get snatched from us at any point in time. And that really rocked me. And during the pandemic, I was working at an internship at a hospital, and child, it was a 40-hour internship. I was a senior. The only thing that I did my last semester as a senior was work this internship. I worked this internship, and in the middle of the internship, I kid you not, the pandemic hit and all hell broke loose. And mind you, I'm an intern, so it's like, this is exactly how it happened, and I'm just gonna make this short and cute. But basically, I remember waking up one day, regular day, brush my teeth, wash my face, get in the shower, blah blah blah, doing all my thing, you know, normal day. It's a normal day. I go to my internship, everything's cool and dandy, and then all of a sudden, and then I had a friend at the internship too, because she was also an intern. God bless her. I miss her. I hope she's doing well. In the middle of the day, I start reading this group chat. In the group chat, people are talking about, oh, COVID. Now, all these rumors about COVID and da-da-da-da-da, it was like, it was all in the air, but like nobody's thinking that, you know, nobody's thinking nothing. It was like, there was just rumors. They felt like rumors at the time, right? We're just reading, like, so I'm reading this group chat and everybody's talking about, oh, they're thinking about shutting down the school. Oh, like, oh my God, they're gonna cancel this. Oh, blah, blah. So the whole day at the internship, me and my girl, we are glued to the group chat like, girl, do you see what's happening? Like, she's like, what? No. Oh, so we're just like, what? That's impossible. Like, da, 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 da. So this is all going on. So basically, I ended up leaving my internship that day, and when I came back, I drove back. I had parked my car in the garage. I will never forget this day. I had parked my car in the garage and I was walking back, and then as soon as I turned the corner to get to the front of the building, when I tell you I saw somebody pushing the move out cart, and I said no. I'm sorry, I'm very dramatic, but I was like, I just knew it was over. Like, I just knew it was over. Like, it just dropped, like, my whole, bro, I was like, so then I get inside, and mind you, I'm an RA at this time too, so that's a whole thing, because you know, when the building gets shut down as an RA, you got responsibilities. Mind you, I'm freaking out because I just knew, like, I just had a very bad feeling about it, and anybody could tell you that was there that day. I was freaking out because I was like, I'm not gonna graduate. They're gonna cancel graduation. My internship. How am I gonna be able? How am I gonna finish my internship? Da, 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 da. Like, I'm freaking out, and then they're like, Gabby, we don't know. Da, 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 da. And I was like, no. If they're moving us out, bro, we ain't coming back. Like, fast forward, basically everybody had to move out from the dorm except me. And I ended up staying behind because of my internship. I needed to finish my internship. And I got like a special exception because I was an RA at the time too, to be able to stay in my dorm. But mind you, at this point, that low-key rocked me even more, because now all of a sudden everybody is literally gone. Like, a whole building where there were like 300 students is now empty, and it's literally just me and my RLC, the one who operated, and like, he was the one that was running the building. And mind you, he held me down. So, like, when I tell you, God will always send you one person. I don't care how low in the gutter you are, bruh. God will always send one person to help you. And like, I'm a firm believer in that, because in my lowest moments, there has always been one. Even if that one is just God himself, bruh, that just shows up at the last second. Like, there's always one. But I digress. For a good month, I lived in that building, I kid you not, by myself. And when I tell you, that was the first time depression ever knocked me upside my head. Like, I completely lost it. Everything that I had seen, like, my sense of reality, like I said, just shattered. And it's like, it was just, that was such a crazy time just in itself. But I remember even like, there was one night I remember crying out. I cried out to God, and I had cried out to God for other things in life, you know, like cried out, like, you know, like, God, my mom has like a parent teacher conference, like, please don't let my teacher tell her this, or like, please don't, like, there's things like that I've cried out to God for, but never did I ever. And that was the first moment where I literally was like, God, I need to feel you, bruh. Like, I felt so alone, and it's like, I felt like nobody nobody could understand what I was going through. And like, because nobody was left like that. Like, you get what I'm saying? In the middle of the pandemic, like, I just felt so alone. And like, I had a couple friends that were still on campus, so we would talk and chat sometimes, but like, obviously there were little moments that God would send that kind of like relief, but at the end of the day, like, bruh, like, it was bad. So now fast forward, my internship ends up wanting to hire me full time in the middle of the pandemic because they're like, we need all the help that we can get. I actually ended up working in the emergency management portion of the hospital. And so I ended up working everything that we did. I worked in the COVID command center. Everything that we did was all COVID related. Like, everything was about COVID. We were working 60-hour weeks. So now I'm going from working a 40-hour internship to now I'm working a 60-hour week, where it's like 10-hour shifts, this, that, and the third. And it's like, it was hell, y'all, like, to say the least. Like, it was a very rude awakening, because these people that were so sweet and so amazing while I was an intern, when I got hired, completely switched up. Like, the amount of narcissism, the amount of nepotism, just like, I saw so much corruption, like, it rocked me. So yeah, very crazy sequence of events. So we're leading up to 2020 was a crazy year. So all that's going on. And then at the same time, like, I'm also dating this boy at the same time, and it's like, that's also not going really great either. So there were just so many heartbreak. It was like heartbreak after heartbreak after heartbreak after heartbreak, alone after alone after alone after alone. And so it broke me, bruh. Like, it broke me down. Man, what a crazy time. It's crazy because I feel like I've talked about this in bits and pieces, but like, never like fully. So even this is like me really working it out as I like talk it too, as I speak it too. So now I end up splitting and parting ways with the boy that I was messing with at the time, and that created heartbreak. And then I also ended up leaving my job because I felt like God had told me to quit. And so 2020 was just a whole bunch of a lot of things. And this is what happened, and this is where deception kicked in for me, because randomly on Twitter, right? And this is the part where it starts to get embarrassing, because randomly on Twitter, mind you, at this point in time, I'm just like, I'm already messed up. So I'm on Twitter and I'm dating this boy, and I come across a tweet like randomly just on my TL, and it literally will just take one little lie for deception to sneak in. But I'm on Twitter and then I'm reading this tweet, and this girl posted like some tarot cards, right? And the message was like for water signs. And so I'm a Scorpio if we look at astrology. And so the thing was like a Scorpio something and something sign reading, right? And I didn't know at the time what tarot really was. Like, I just, I kind of felt like it maybe not is a good thing. But then I also was like, what in the world could this really like? It's like, I didn't really understand, I felt like it was foreign, but I didn't really feel like I understood that it was not going to be good. You get what I'm saying? Like, I didn't see it as evil. And so I'm reading the message that she put, and it's like, it's talking about love and relationships. So I'm like, ooh, like, let me read this, right? Jesus. So then I'm reading it, and then everything that she's saying in this message is true. And I remember sending it to my friends like, y'all, this is crazy. Do you see what this girl is saying? This is exactly what I said. This is exactly what's going on with me. And da-da-da-da-da. And it's crazy because the majority of the message resonated, but there was this one little part of the message where she said something about a twin flame, and I didn't know what in the world a twin flame was, but I remember hearing I read it and I was like, what is that? And I Googled it, and I remember exactly when I Googled it. Like, I just remember I see it in my head, and I Googled it, and I remember reading what it was. And basically, like, a twin flame is the concept of, from what I remember, because it has been a while since God has pulled me out, at least out of that mess, has been, it's like one soul that's split between, it's like one soul that's split and then lives in like separate people. So it's like one soul, and then a woman or like one person gets one, like a masculine gets the part of the soul, and then the feminine gets like the other half of the soul. And like basically you're like working through life, and like the two parts, the soul that's like split in two in these people is like working to try to find their way back to each other, kind of. That's basically like the general concept from what I understand. But the whole thing, I really just wrote it off in my head after God pulled me out of that nonsense, because it was literally nonsense. She had said something about a twin flame, and like I remember reading it, and I even remember reading it and be like, no, like that's crazy. Really? That's possible? Like, I just remember in my ignorance and in me being just naive, I'm like, oh my God, like, is that what's happening? And then, you know, your feelings start to lie to you too. So it's like, dang, you know, our connection do feel like that. Like, dang, like it do. So then deception, boop, it took me out. After that, that kind of introduced me into the tarot world. And so basically, like, from there, it just became more common for me to just get interested in tarot. And on top of that, and then the twin flame thing, that thing had a hold on me for a good year, because a lot of deception occurred in that time period. Because now it's like, oh my God, like I have to improve myself so that I can like be this, so that I can attract this, so that I can do this, so that I can fulfill this beautiful divine mission that God has put us here for. And mind you, in this whole thing, in this whole time, I'm thinking that this is God, and it's just crazy. Like at some point I came to my senses, and I was like, you know what, this is crazy, because it just pushed me further and further and further into just depression, stress, anxiety. Now I'm over here paranoid about, oh my God, I need to do this. And like, it created so much anxiety. Like, what the heck? Created so much anxiety, to the point where I got so fed up with trying to figure out what was going on, that I was like, God, this ain't even, if it's for me, then it's for me, and if it ain't for me, then it ain't for me. So then at a certain point, I finally let that go. Praise God. And I learned a lot through that experience, child. Like, that's really what kind of opened me up into like that self-love world, because I was like, dang, like I really don't love myself. And like, that was true. Like, I didn't really love myself. But, and like, I had a lot of trauma too from when I was a kid, because I grew up in a very traumatic experience. Like, my childhood, even though it wasn't bad, within me, I suffered through a lot of trauma, like feeling like I never had a voice, feeling like I couldn't express my emotions, feeling like I didn't fit in. I didn't feel like I fit in at the church. I didn't feel like I fit in at home. I felt like I didn't fit in at school. I was bullied severely as a kid. Like, I just always felt so different. And I'm like, why can't I find somewhere where I fit in, right? And so finally, like, I'm learning about all of this stuff. Like, I'm learning about self-love. I'm learning about, and through tarot, it's like it introduced me into like spirituality and like spiritual practices. And so this is when, mind you, still in deception, still not really thinking that there's anything wrong with this, I'm like getting further and further into learning about different spiritual concepts. So now, like, I'm reading books, like I'm reading things like, I remember reading in the very beginning, The 7 Laws of Spiritual Success by Deepak Chopra. And that really opened me up. But mind you, if you read those 7 spiritual laws, all of those laws are literally taken straight from the Bible. They're just called different things and like taught in a different way, but they're literally, the roots are all in the Bible. At this point in time, I'm not even really thinking about the Bible, because I also had a little blurb of a bad experience with somebody that I was doing a Bible study with during the pandemic times. And I didn't appreciate the way that homegirl lifestyle was approaching me. So it's like, mind you, all of this kind of just built up to put a really bad taste in my mouth when it came to Christianity and just like Christians in general, because it's like, I'm feeling like I can't fit in. I'm feeling like I can't wear my hair right. I'm feeling like, because in the Ethiopian church, you got to cover your hair and you got to look like, you got to be, there's a certain way that women are supposed to kind of come to church. And I'm like, I can't look right. I can't talk right. I can't do this. I can't do that. Like, I just felt like I couldn't. So at some point, I feel like it all just opened. It just put me in position to just be like, you know what? I'm going to do my own thing, because y'all keep trying to tell me to do this, this, and that. That don't make sense to me. This don't make sense to me. That I don't even understand that, because what? And it's like, you're being mean. Why are you criticizing me? Like, there was just so much. And it's honestly, all of this, and why I share it is because this is the core of why Christianity is viewed so negatively in the modern day. And it's like, there are so many different types of trauma. Like, we're all, like, not we're all, but a lot of us are just church hurt. Like, we've had very bad experiences early on in our childhood, or as we've gone along to grow up, that have really left a nasty bad taste in our mouth. One person literally takes it out for like, one person will ruin the entire just practice of faith, you know? Like, one bad experience, one pastor said the wrong thing, one Sunday school teacher said the wrong thing, and like, we're just like, I'm not going back there. And like, mind you, I get it, because I was like that too. Like, I was like, there's nothing for me here. I've tried this. And so now I'm kind of like entering into the part of my life where I'm like, you know what? I'm just gonna, and so this is me in my head. God is just, I'm now trusting, I'm praying. I'm like, God is gonna show me what is the truth. Like, okay, God, you help me build what it is that I need to believe. You help me, show me what I need to learn. What do you mean by this? Like, and so I, at that point, relied more on God. And now I'm like, okay, I couldn't feel like I could trust anybody else to teach me, almost, you know? Like, I was like, I gotta rely on myself to be able to lead myself, teach myself to God. No, like, I have to teach myself God, if that makes sense. And mind you, I'm still not thinking that there's really anything wrong with that, because it's not like anybody else was really at that moment in time in my life really able to guide me anyway. So I'm like, okay, I'm gonna guide myself. And Jesus, and all of that, it's like, now I'm being opened up into so many different ways, and like, so many different types of things came to me, y'all. Like, I got into not only the tarot, but like, I also, at some point in time, African spirituality was introduced to me. And African spirituality, I was always curious about, because I'm African, duh, but like, also because I felt like there was just so many lies and deception, that the deeper I got more into the spiritual world, that it's like, there were so many lies to just bash anything that wasn't that, you know what I mean? Like, it was just, and even still, like, I can't even really verbalize it, but I'm almost positive if you're listening and watching this video, you know what I mean. All of these other types of books, sorry y'all, I'm moving too fast. All of these other types of books, concepts, practices, all of these things are really just, they're just playing off the Bible. It's like, to be real, it's like the devil has taken all of the biblical truths and painted and like switched them up just a little bit to lead you away from Jesus. Like, we'll give you just enough that you feel like you know what's happening, like you're spiritual and like you're connected to God, but when you're not connected to Jesus, you literally are missing the most important part. So it pretty much just fuels your head to think that, like, you know, like I know it, like I got it, like I'm learning it, but in reality, it's like, it only gives you, it gives you majority of what it is that you're looking for, but it doesn't give you all of what it is that you really need. Like, you know, you need Jesus, but like, you're learning these concepts. Meanwhile, it's like, if you really knew and like just accepted the love of Jesus, like Jesus would show you everything. Like he would literally show you how all of those things are really just manipulations of his words and his works, you know? And so this is where I feel like people's feathers are gonna get ruffled, because it's like, I'm not trying to attack anybody for what it is that they believe or they practice. However, I feel like the way that God pulled me out of this deception, y'all, and the way that God has started to reveal to me what it is that I was really involved in, like, my brain is like, I had spent weeks in repentance, y'all, like for the first time in my life. Mind you, this is how I'm just gonna end the story, kind of like I'm gonna wrap it up here, but just because I don't want it to get in too long. But like, basically at some point I had also gotten into a really abusive, toxic relationship. Not abusive like physically, but like mentally, emotionally, and very slightly, only just very slightly physically, because the first time it got a little physical, I was like, something not right here. But then the second, like third-ish time that it got really physical, like when it really got like you pushing me physical, I was like, yeah, I'm gone. Like we ain't doing that. Like, it's one thing for me to be mentally confused, emotionally, like, you know, you could be like, but like, you touch me and it's over. So I ended up ending the relationship. And then after that, I actually started calling that whole season of my life liberation season. Like, I'm like, it is liberation season. I am about to free up. And the whole time I'm thinking I'm free up. It is liberation season, trust me. But it wasn't liberation season in the way that I thought it was going to be. It's liberation season in the way that God saw fit. It's the liberation season that Jesus had in mind for me, not the liberation that I was thinking I was going to get. Jesus ended up freeing me in a completely like different and completely better way, like English, but like it was so much better than what I could expect, y'all. Like, what? So that's why I'm coming here with the fire, and that's why I'm here to tell the tale, because the way that God literally freed me, like, I ain't never going back. I ain't never touching no book. I ain't never touching no crystal. I ain't never touching no tarot. I ain't touching none of it, because I don't need it. We don't need it. It really is. And it's like, I got caught into the tarot too, even more, because it's like the more that like the more you start to like introduce it into your life, the more it kind of just pulls you in. It's like the way that I see it, or like the way that God like showed it to me, is it's like the devil, the same way that kids get tempted by candy. It's like the devil will leave like this little piece of candy, look harmless. And at first, you know, it kind of is like, it's just a little piece of candy. And it's like, you know, you're wandering around, but like you're hungry, because you're hungry and you're thirsting for Jesus in reality. And like a lot of the time, I didn't know that. A lot of the time we don't know that. We don't know what we're looking for. We just know that we're looking for this peace. We're looking for peace. Like, we're looking for peace. We're looking for peace. We're looking for that, we're looking for relief, bruh. And so we're like yearning for this peace. We're yearning for this like, yeah, it's just peace. And it's like the devil will like drop this little piece of candy, and it's like, you know, it's like you being hungry. So you're hungry and you're like, oh, and then you come across this little piece of candy, and then you pick up the little piece of candy, you're like, nom, 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 nom. You eat the piece of candy, you're like, oh, okay, that was a little better, but I'm still hungry. And then the devil will drop another piece of candy, but now the little piece of candy is a little bit further. So now you're like, oh, what's another piece of candy? So then you keep going, and then you go and you're like, you eat that piece of candy, you're like, oh, that was good. But it's like, it's almost like, you know how like when you're really hungry, if you just snack, like sometimes snacking low-key makes it worse. It's like, It's like how I feel like my mom used to tell me to chew gum when I was hungry because like it would make me less hungry, but I would be like, no, because that would make me more hungry, because now it's activating like now I need to eat a whole meal. You get what I'm saying? And I really feel like that is exactly how the devil traps us, because it's like we'll eat that piece of candy, we'll eat it, and then we'll eat it, and then it's like, but it's almost like it'll leave us more hungry when we taste the piece of candy. And then it's like we eat, then he'll put another piece of candy a little bit further, and it's like the little, he'll just he won't drop too much. He'll just drop it just a little bit. And then, but what's crazy is that the farther you get, you're literally just going and you can't see where it's leading you. All you can see for real is this little piece of candy. And you're so hungry that you're going, and then you're following along to eat these pieces of candy because you're so hungry. And it's making you hungrier the more that it's teasing you. It's literally a tease. It's teasing you because, and ain't that the devil? Because God doesn't tease. The devil teases. The devil picks on you. And so the further we get, before we know it, we've gotten to the hell's gates. Like you look up finally, and then you're burning hot because you're literally living in hell in real life. In real life, in hell. No peace, torment, and not able to think clearly, can't figure out what move to make in life. All of these things are symptoms that come from taking the devil's candy. I kid you not. I learned this. I lived this, y'all. Like I lived this, just coming to eat these little pieces of candy, hoping that it's going to lead you to somewhere great. And all it does is lead you to your own demise. It leads you to a lack of peace. It leads you to mental and emotional torment. You don't know what's up, what's down, what's left, what's right, because you're completely disillusioned. And the devil uses those little itty bitty things that seem so innocent to literally poke his ugly head. Sorry, y'all. It's getting late, and the sun is going down. My phone is starting to trip up, but I'm going to end this story. I'll wrap it up here with how Jesus pretty much just called me back. So basically I was in my liberation season, and at this point in time, my friend invited me to church, and I was like, okay, I'm down to go to church. Mind you, I was a little nervous at first because I don't really know the Western world church for real, but I was so thirsty for God, and I had already lost so much of my peace from I ended up having to move back home too after I had quit my job the original time, because later on down the line I ended up going broke. And then, mind you, God is so good that I wasn't even really broke, but I was broke. A lot transpired in that time. And so while I'm also growing closer to God, I'm also moving farther from him too without knowing it. And so it all just made sense to me after God pulled me out and showed me why. It's I'm playing in the devil's playground, and then I'm over here thinking that I'm gonna find some sort of peace, and it's it's not gonna happen. It really will not happen. Only true peace and freedom is really found resting in Jesus's arms. And I learned that. And if you had told me that a while ago, I would have been like, girl, I don't get that. But trust me, if you are on this video and you have stayed this long, follow me. Add me as a friend, whatever the case may be, because the rest of my story, the rest of how I'm dedicating my life is literally to help people understand the love of God and to help free people from this deception, because there's really no shame in the game. A lot of the time we fall into this deception because we really just don't understand. We know about Jesus, we heard stories, but we haven't received revelation about Jesus. We haven't lived Jesus in real life. We haven't come into a season, or it's into a part of our lives where the scripture, the Bible, has become real for us now. Now I'm living these stories. I can see myself in this book. Versus before, when we were kids, we're just being taught at. It's just information being thrown at you. But now, no, I live this thing. My life, every character, every moment of my life, if I open this book, I will find something that will help encourage me. I will find literally God will speak to me through this. And I didn't know that. I didn't know. And so now I really want to teach people and help pull people out of this deception, because what we're looking for, we are not going to find on the outside. And to be honest, it's not because it's in the Bible that we find it. Like, don't look at the physicality of the book, because all you have to do is open that thing and start reading it for God to start showing you things. You know what I mean? Like, it's so crazy. So anyway, at some point I ended up going back to church again, and I didn't have a stigma against going to church. You know, like, I love God. I just didn't like going to the church that I used to go to, like, growing up. And so in this midst of this, it's like God also in the middle of this tells me to go to the Woman Evolve conference. So this is when things get real good. So God tells me to go to the Woman Evolve conference. And if you're not familiar, Woman Evolve conference was hosted by Sarah Jakes Roberts last year. And so I go to the Woman Evolve conference. Mind you, I don't know why. God just told me to go. And so out of obedience, if God say so, then I'm gonna do it. Okay. So I go. And then I end up meeting a lady there, and now she's actually my mentor. God bless her, because she has helped pour into me and help me really understand the difference between religion and relationship with Jesus. It's like we have been taught to look at it as like some formal this, that, when in reality, all Christianity really is having a genuine, real relationship. Like Jesus, like God is my dad. Like, that's my dad. That's my dad. You get what I'm saying? And I grew up with daddy issues. So if you have daddy issues, that also plays a part in what breaks our foundation with Jesus too. And it's like, there's just so many ins and outs. There's so many depths to this, but basically I ended up meeting her, and I just remember she was talking and she was praying, and she just had so much spiritual authority, like, yo. And I remember hearing her from the side of my ear. She was like, I stomp on the devil's neck and I pluck his eyeballs out, and I do this and I do it. And I just remember hearing her, but I was just like, you know, I need some of that. Like, I need that level of authority. Like, you know, I realized that I lacked that. Like, sure, I had like all of these other little like things and gifts that God had given me, but I was like, I'm lacking like that confidence in knowing that I can overcome these demons, that I can fight past this, that I can overcome. Like, by this point in time, the devil has literally almost beaten me to a pulp. Like, I'm so weak in the spirit, like, because I just was so depressed and I was so beaten down and I was so exhausted trying to figure out what my purpose was and how to make it work. I got caught up into all of that, like the whole manifestation thing, the whole feeling like I didn't feel like I could create my reality. I knew that that was God's part, but like I felt like I had more power in it than I really did. You know, like, it's like the whole deception of feeling like we bring these things into existence when like we don't do anything. God uses us. He works through us to bring these things into our lives. Like, God does all of everything. And like, yes, it takes our obedience, but it's not through our power. It's not through my power that I'm able to manifest anything into my life. Like, it is literally through the grace of God that anything happens in my life. It's the grace of God that even though we've literally turned our backs or strayed from God, that He will still continue to bless us. It's literally the grace of God and it's like we can become so prideful when God has already blessed us so much that we're not able to humble ourselves to be like, maybe there's some truth to this. And so I feel like God has put a very big urgency on me to share this. And so, yes, it's getting late and like my phone is also dying and it's tripping. So I feel like it's God telling me to wrap it up. Like, the message has been received. And so basically, long story short, through the help of my spiritual mentor, that I met from Woman Evolve. Like over the past couple months, we have just been working through a lot of the deception that I found myself in, working through really learning the love of God. And for anybody that has any questions, if you just need some help, or you're a little confused, or you want some clarity on anything that I said, you can DM me, you can comment on below. I'm gonna post this on YouTube too at some point, so YouTube, you guys can leave comments too. My Instagram is at YebiB, so it's at YeaBYB. And yeah, long story short, God pulled me out, and ever since then, Lord, the peace, the joy, the freedom, I got my confidence back. Like when I tell you, I was so deceived. Like, and it's so crazy because it really hurt me. Like I was heartbroken. I was in repentance for weeks, to the point where God literally told me, stop crying, woman, get up. Like, because it broke my heart so bad, because I love God so much to be deceived so heavily in regards to just like my spirituality. So thank God he's found me, and he's brought me back to like where he originally intended me to be. But y'all, it's never too late to turn back. And when you hear words like this, or you hear somebody's testimony, please listen. Please don't write it off as nonsense, and please don't scoff at what people have to share, bruh, because there's gonna be one day that you wish you really listened, I swear. And yeah, that's all I really have to say. My content is going to be doing a whole 360, so don't forget to follow me. Share this with anybody. I'm going to be I don't know what God has for me, but you know, I had quit my job, so I'm free. So the Lord, it's really just God's plan from this point forward. But if you're here for it, and you're also on this journey, or you just loved anything that I had to say, subscribe, follow me, all of the good stuff, and I'll see you in my next video. Love you guys. Bye.